Hello and welcome back to Trails into Reverie for the final time for realsies. I cannot think of anything that can humanly be after this. You know, obviously I've never played the game before, so I don't know for what comes next. Also, I turned up my mic a little bit, so if it's a little too loud, I'm sorry. But it was a little bit too quiet last video since I have adjusted a few other things, so hopefully it sounds fine. Anyways.
Connecting to Reverie Garden
Like I said last time,
database.
this is supposed to be the gap between Reverie and the Daybreak. I don't know how long this is. I tried to look it up, but like it didn't really give me a straight answer. It seems like there's a bunch of different parts to it, but I don't want to spoil anything, so I don't look up things too hard. I can always ask my friend, but these are but minute fragments of memories drifting in this ocean. Memories of what will be in the near future. It seems like it's fine if I play it before Daybreak. So, can they be shadows of the tangled threads woven by Elysium? Perhaps faded illusions that slip through the cracks of time and space. There are none who know the answer. I don't like the sad tense music. Oh, okay, so there's 3 parts to this. Oh. Okay, I'm really excited to play Daybreak, guys. Another hot springs paradise. I'm just gonna go down the order. January, year 1208 of the September calendar. Between 2 great mountains at the tip of a covered basin sits Long Lai. Basin? The town is known for 2 things, being the eastern entrance to the Republic and its exceptional hot springs. With these enticing factors, does it continue to welcome tourists hailing from both home and abroad? Where is Zin from? Because he's from Calvard, wasn't he? And Keelika is now part of like Calvard's big dogs. Because Calvard's what's next. Yet today it served guests quite unlike its many unseasoned visitors. These had come from another renowned hot springs paradise situated in the northern reaches of Arabonia. The food is just exquisite. Agreed, the Phoenix food is certainly nothing to sneeze at. I doubt the chef could recollect dishes this unique in taste. What is your problem? I can't just grab the top of my blinds. Bichon's inn reputation can precede itself. Baron Tia and Lady Lucia Schwarzer, Summerlin's culinary delights, spirits high and stomachs filling fast. The daughter Elise sat down next to them. I don't remember Elise looking like that nice, but her spirit a bit lower by comparison as her brows furrowed with concern. Chef's luxuries come with just an equally luxurious price tag. There's 4, so even 2 nights might have cost a small fortune. Must have cost a small fortune. Probably isn't what she said. She shook her head. Seeming to dampen the mood. Now we have the money. My budgeting as student has made it terrible having me seeing the numbers and everything. Older brother Reen couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Then the budget buster will like how much you save, because we're not here as paying customers. We're invited by the owners personally. So they want to get to know it since we are similar establishments. So here we are. We invited you me sooner than later, of course. Right, Dad? Honestly, this list of boons coming from our countries finally come to terms with one another. Sorry. The Republic is reveling in on her levels of prosperity. The relations between our people are more active and festive than ever. I, for one, welcome any opportunity to foster friendship further. Stop. The man took another healthy sip of his baju before continuing. Again, excuse my pronunciations. Friendship over fighting, I say. Such a shame the world tends to overcome that simple concept. His glass was almost empty. Lucy filled it to the brim while adding her own thoughts. Bro, I've been freezing cold all day. I sit down and record and I'm fucking toasty as shit. I did just turn off the heat in the house, but... Should not an ingredient. That aside, there's no reason to spoil family vacation when we so rarely have time to take them. Oh, heard it's some unusual sweet dishes we're trying. Such as share some with me, Reen. A bit. Things are nice in the hot springs, so I'm in the mood for something sweet after. It's delicious, but I was concerned. Hot springs is a real star of the show. I can't tell whose voice is whose. Like, because it doesn't like, you know, so like Reen said this, so like I'm not gonna do voices as much because I can't tell who's talking. So that boy right there. The ruling lord of the hot springs paradise would never let a good discussion about them pass him by. He was as fond of their quality and soothing effects as Reen, enthusiasm undeniably apparent from the warmth of his tone to the width of his smile. The medicinal springs happen to be a favorite of mine. Can't but be fascinated by them time and time again. I can believe it. I've always known about them, but here's the first place I've been able to feel the way they warm me right to your core. Think you can make one available at the Phoenix Wings? Rather try. With its own obstacles. Resident problems as Tio expressed in practical terms, Reen had just as many proposed solutions. The conversation grew more involved by the minute, leaving ladies of the house to pleasantly bask in their glow and continue enjoying the meal before them. All 4 felt the same. It had been too long since they could join each other's company, but the wait had been well worth it. That night, after indulging in his post-dinner soak in the springs, Telling his family he was going for a walk, Rean departed at the end. Alright, let's do this. Taking a deep breath, Chris ignited the air of long lie filling his lungs. It's considered an excellent bonus to his trip, to be sure, but it's not the real reason he agreed to visit. He comes to Yun Kunfai, the famed sword hermit. Master Kunfai was the founder of the Eight Leaves One Blade School, of which Rean was a practitioner, and though now over 70 years old, he was still regarded as one of the strongest combatants on the continent. They had not met since before Rean's enrollment at Thor's. Many later exchanged during the 4 years that followed, even they had stopped after Rean earned the right to call himself a divine blade over a year ago. There was so very much he wished to discuss with his master. What he had learned in his 4 years of training, what had transpired since becoming a divine blade, the true meaning behind being the final blade to master the Eight Leaves. His plan tests have nothing to do with swordsmanship, too. All these questions, all impossible to answer without first knowing the whereabouts of a single individual. Even a senior practitioner like Cassius Bright claimed ignorance, having received not a single update from the World Master. He had always been an elusive but traceable sword, but wherever he was now, he was next to impossible to track. That was until word of a blade master being sighted in Long Lai reached Rean's ears. The man held a fondness for the town's specialties, those being the hot springs and its fragrant tea leaves, making the sighting worthy of particular note. He also knew from the letters before they stopped they intended to journey eastward, making Long Lai one of the more plausible stopping points. The word came just as Schwarzers were invited to stay at the inn during the New Year vacation. Rean's told him that timing was a little too fortunate. With how vague the lead was, he would most likely result in him leaving the same as he had arrived. While he had not discussed Reverie being key to his traveling here, his family seemed to sense it was more than a simple pleasure trip for him. I had a great time catching up with him, but I don't want to get his hopes up for nothing. His thoughts in mind, he made his way through the night streets. Do they not want to show us Long Lai yet? Because they don't want to spoil it. Long is artistically eastern, making it a uniquely intriguing sight among most of Calvert's towns and cities. This is not to say it was similar to Crossbow's East Street, which, with subtle colors paired with dignified beauty, every wall and stone exuded the traditional concept of wabi-sabi. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced things. One look was enough to understand the region was rich with history. This quiet charm would give way to contrastingly lively evenings, where tourists both westward and farther eastward were greeted at stalls dedicated to the hot springs and more. This, too, held a traditional sort of charm. Rean asked several merchants if they had any information pertaining to the whereabouts of his master, somewhat sheepishly purchasing a number of souvenirs from their stalls to keep himself from being a nuisance. They, he justified, make excellent gifts for his friends, his coworkers, and his students. It was almost time for them to graduate. Be more emotional at theirs than I was for mine. First time we're gonna get to experience what it was like for the young birds he had taken under his wing for 2 years to finally leave the nest. The first year eventful, to say the least. What had started as a problem class full of disagreements and mounting tension had slowly grown to one of compassion and understanding for one another. So with each new discovery about themselves and every new ordeal the world sought to impose upon them, that they grew not only as individuals but as a team. Hope this period remained as much a meaningful part of their lives as it would always be for him. The months before the retributive tower's appearance held many a trial, making the 10 months that followed in its shadow pass all too quickly. In that time, Rean's sons continued to mature, building everything they accomplished in the first year to prepare for and settle into their desired future. Indeed, whether it was by overcoming their demons or by learning to work with them in a healthier fashion, their paths up until now had been well worn, and while they may have had time to rest, he was proud to be a part of why their steps continued to face forward. Proud, but also lonely at the thought of saying goodbye. So the second year drew to a close, lacking in grandiose events, but still rewarding in its own right, was his mixture of emotions that bore conflict within him most. He felt going through it all over again, next year, and even the year after that. Have a career I chose to pursue, huh? You didn't know when he stopped walking. Realize this? He resumed his search, paying respect in mind to many generations of educators who came before him. I never really thought about that from my teacher's perspective as, growing with them and then leaving them, and growing and then leaving, and, for us, in the moment, you're a teacher along the way, and some teachers, those ones that really change your life will always, live there, I have plenty of teachers that, if you magically see this, my German teacher, she passed away from cancer, unfortunately. I have a history teacher in Idaho I loved. My psychology teacher also apparently passed away, which was tragic. It's just, it's even funny to say, in Idaho, I still have these teachers that, even though all the shit was going on there, it's just crazy to look back and, because people had so much influence. Math teacher, and here, just how it is. I he could not find Master Pai and Long Lai. It was, however, still too early to say whether the trip had been in vain, as he had at least caught an unverified report of the Blade Master being seen in the mountains to the south. Wondering if such trainer night was going to be ideal, but Rena was already firm on spending the next day with his family. Tonight it would have to be. Making a brief stop to the inn to tuck a souvenir somewhere secure, then departed for his new destination. Reen. What an interesting art style. The mountains winding, half-beaten trails would be more treacherous at night, but they were not off-limits as such. The key, Reen knew, would be not to rely on sight alone. His sense of hearing, smell, perhaps even touch, were going to be equally vital in the hours ahead. Calling upon his experience and instinct to heighten all 5 senses, he took in his surroundings in full. Takes back to the training in the mountains. Typical experience training would imply his time of being on some tutelage between student and master, but equated to so much more. The danger then was far worse than it was now. Some days required to set foot in highly dangerous territories just to find the day's food to survive. Sounds like the Kunlun Mountains may have been used for some exercise a long time ago. He was starting to think of the information gained during his search as he continued along the trail. Searching for evidence of human activity in an environment like this was not a difficult task. It was always something indicative of the presence behind that no wild creature could, be it a long dead fire, footprints, or traces of going on the hunt. One need only follow the like to lead to their source. Reen did so, balancing with the caution instilled in him by his old master and hunting enthusiast of a father. He soon led into precisely clear evidence that a human had been in the area. The evidence itself was far from what he expected. Means of a camp? No, this is... Didn't look like it had been left by martial artists in training or roaming hunters. Most speculating was there were multiple sites like the first, all evenly spaced from one to the next. So something was being measured. Is there a group of scholars doing research? It's too large in scale for that. Something more to be found here. Reen advanced. Soon after he found another unusual amount of evidence. It's like someone forced their way through in a car, or like hacked open a path wide enough for a car to pass through. All four of the inspection here suggested that whoever was responsible had given up on this endeavor, leading him to wonder if they had somehow found success elsewhere. If they did, why had they done this at all? The question pestered him. If there was anywhere to clear wide paths, the remote depths of the mountains certainly were not it. But instinct told him he was only a step away from discovering the answer. Came on trail a little further. This thought, Reen sensed something approaching. Person? People? Yes, there were two. It's clear they were very aware of his presence as well. Only for a fleeting second did he think they might be the ones responsible for strange shouts, but deadly tension that now thickened there told him they're no simple scholars. Felt them draw near, the night veiling themselves well, and then he felt them stop. How about you show yourselves? Circled placing his hand on his touchy, signifying to those watching that he had no desire to fight. The silhouettes then silently emerged from the darker shadows of the mountains. Looked very much like the shinobi of the east he had heard about, their forms clad from top to bottom in black garments, and their faces fully obscured. Seer and sight posed a threat after all, divine blood of the Empire. After the clients had begun, we'll make an exception for one among their list of dangerous persons. Silhouettes then charged. They caught him completely off guard, drawing short, straight blades to attack him as they narrowed in. Instead of one stress, but nearly in that same moment he was in a fighting stance, hand over a still sheathed tachi. Fifth form, Morning Moon. Pursued the direction of his foe's attack to evade them, then mounted a counterattack of his own. Took his instant repel their assault and leave them vulnerable. Rarely, this would be the time to take the offensive, what one can do is stare at the two with disbelief. Never mind, it's the move. Now that we've crossed blades. Pause, the blue eyes giving way to a more intent gaze. Are you? Practitioners at 8 Leaves School. Another pause. This time from the swords were entering as they were well aware the question was coming. No, though we do possess ties to the school. We are of the Ikaraga? Practitioners of Black God One Blade School. What? I was left stunned. Two Ikaraga, I don't know if I'm saying that right, held their blades horizontally, ready to thrust forward at any moment. As though they wanted to make clear that while they'd been caught off guard once, they'd not be so fortunate twice. Just fine by assuming the middle stance with this tachi. Just as we're only beat away from engaging battle. Kilika? This guy's a black cyclone. Roared from the darkness at such speed that it seemed certain to slice anything it touched. His screaming must rise more than initial attacks like silhouettes. He did not expect an attack from the angle, the distance, or even that movement. Sitting hand, did not so much flinch at the sight. Pushing blade over an arch and a half was heading directly for Reen's back. He couldn't possibly dodge it now. So he should notice. Perhaps it was impossible to notice. The laser, divine blood of the Empire, would soon fall. So that's what he responded once to be convinced of no other fate in his future. When Reen stands running full circle, high intensity built into his touch of a motion of swing. The blow made was weighted yet precise, shifted the incoming blade to a new direction without mitigating its near overpowering force. It was an application of the first form, Helix. There was no greater course in the moment than to use a redirect attack without ever making direct contact. So it was not severely off its intended course, but Reen slashed it again, birthing a shockwave that further shifted its path. The blade went flying hair to the right direction it had come from. How was there to definitely catch it midair? Okay, so no, I just said that because Kilika has a hat. I don't know anybody else who uses that, but I guess like if they're in this culture, that makes sense. We need to take the title. For they've been called divine, but all the same. Use the unclouded eye as well. Use the unclouded eye well. From the hand emerged a new figure from the darkness. While he was clad in similar garments to the silhouettes, his presence was much more inspired by comparison. His musculature was thoroughly discernible beneath his body-covering fortified suit. His every movement, however slight, reflected a complete lack of hesitation, and the faint light of his eyes, visible through his mask, projecting no emotion whatsoever. He was the sort of a true warrior, one projected only by those who have fought more battles that was possible to count. Fall back, he is too formidable a foe for you to handle. So let's slay the darkness in an instant. Only a new rival was left to face Rean. Need to know, who are you? Why did you attack me? Contract for business flows for such information. In this place now, fledgling Divine Blade. Sean was not of advice nor of an order. It was as if the man were stating a fact, his calmness veiling an undertone of malice that told Rean what would happen if he did not do as was told. Afraid I can't do that with an explanation. Not when I haven't found what I'm looking for yet. Understand, then? There's only anything to us. All they could do is battle. I, Kurogan of the Roketsu School, shall be your opponent. Turner stood at attention, the large blade he had thrown before now pointed. That's those words, but I can see it's not an option. Rean sighed, taking his own stance in turn. Then Rean charged and matched the alien's one-blade school seven form shall be yours. Divine Blade moved instantly. The bizarre weapon Kurogan wielded was less akin to a sword and more four equally sized blades arranged in the shape of a cross, their bases connecting to a single point. That he could direct this large weighted shuriken as though it were a simple child's toy spoke volumes about how strong he was. Still, even it was not infallible, for it was not one to be ideally used in close-range combat. Kurogan appeared to have no other key weapons on hand either, meaning that if Rean could force him to fight where he would be at the most disadvantage, he'd very likely come out of this as the victor. So he had in mind when choosing to act first. Second form, Gale. He closed the gap between them, drew his blade, made a wide swing towards his opponent in the blink of an eye. Kurogan blocked the blow with ease. That, however, meant nothing in the larger scheme of things. Rean knew well this man's capabilities. As long as the gap between them was closed, and it was, he considered the attack a success. Just as he thought he would be able to push away and overpower his foe by mounting a newly fierce assault, Kana split his crosshair shuriken in half. These are what he did to make clear this was intended by design. Interesting. I found out, if you guys didn't read 3 and 9, that Swin's blade comes apart. It's one blade, but it goes into 2. So, like, maybe something like that. Dual double sabers. There's no hiding a shock. That's crazy. The West double sabers used relics from Dark Ages. They're difficult to utilize. Crow was the only person Rean knew who was competent with one, and the only one. The skill it would take to use 2 was almost too difficult to fathom. This fucking surprise created an opening. I was trying to think of somebody that I could. An opening that Kurogan was not going to let pass unexploited. For this thing, twin two-handed blades allowed the shinobi to perform considerably more strikes than Rean, giving him no chance to push past. So sparked as weapons clashed. Kurogan was dominant for some time, but he could do nothing to bolster his advantage. With strike and spark after strike and spark, the advantage was moving back to Rean. Some part due to being used to fighting this weapon that defied rationale, but also because he had been given the time to find what he was looking for. Perfect range in which to attack. Double sabers were forged with a shorter reach than they appeared to have, sling inevitable due to their handle being in the middle. It could have been because he also used a shuriken, but the length of Kurogan's sabers were even shorter than Crow's, meaning Rean would have to adjust to the longer length of his blade. He measured patiently, staying only just out of Kurogan's reach and evading the onslaught by a hair's breadth each time prior to countering. He calculated quickly thanks to Kurogan's frequent rapid attacks, meaning all Rean had to do now was wait for the right moment. This moment would come in the form of his opponent showing him impatience for a stalled battle. Dropping to take an unneeded step forward, Rean evaded the strike expertly, instantly returning with an upward diagonal slash. Forceful swing his touch, he made contact with the handle of Kurogan's unswung weapon, knocking it clean out of his hand. Rean dashed forward to make use of his veiled opportunity, but after only a flicker of bewilderment, Kurogan moved to deny him. He blocked Rean's attack with a double saber still in his position, then hurled a hidden kunai with his free hand, jumping backward a significant distance while doing so. Very good, Divine Blade of the 8 Leaves. If you held the skills of a princess, which without doubt deserve your reputation. Princess? Rean's intonation was unanswered as Kurogan took a notably different stance than before. Should I respect for your skill with my finest technique? Rean staunchly on guard. Senses heightened, he focused every nerve in his body, fixing his eyes on whatever was to come of Kurogan. Was now gone. Nothing remained where Rean's opponent had just stood. He didn't take his eyes off him, never eased himself for a moment, but Kurogan was nowhere to be seen. How? Had he moved that quickly? Some kind of spatial translocation? No signs to indicate either one. So he never moved at all and he was still there, sight unseen? No, that wasn't either. The double saber Rean had repelled to the ground was also gone. He saw symptoms, so he hasn't gone far. There's a panic welling up within him, honing his senses a second time. There was another black cyclone swirled towards him from the shadows. Fixed like something in nature, so with little deviation, his load deflected as he did the first time. Technically, Kurogan had resembled his shuriken after recovering its lost half so he could throw it again. Cells indicated, together with a slight change of surroundings, where he was now positioned. We needed a little more time to know where he was for certain, but ahead of making a solid conclusion, the cyclone came out again yet again from a new angle. It's fast. Though he blocked this attack as well as the last, before he could fully correct his posture, the next cyclone approached. The gap between was getting shorter and shorter. Another time was shorter, and another shorter. Soon as the sword's smaller target was seemingly growing into a blended grand storm of death with Rean trapped at its center. I feel like I'm being attacked by snowbirds. They make phantom copies of himself. He had no idea from where the next cyclone would form. And by the time he located it, the next one was ready. Even though the eye wasn't going to be enough for him to deduce Karagane's location. He'd been able to repel every blade that met with him so far, but this was growing increasingly difficult. I want to use it, I'm not sure I have a choice. However, this would take him in danger, he took his mind off the battle. He gave up blocking evading attacks, taking the bare minimum's focus and not sustaining lethal blows and focusing his mind inward. Ferguson probably had long cultivated inside of him. Her had feared, loathed, and rejected. Probably never relied on, desired, and nearly surrendered himself to. Probably faced with loved ones at his side, making a true part of himself. His mind clear as day, he unleashed his full strength. Enlightened spirit unification. He imbued his Tachi with the great power surging out of him, crying out as he did so. Spinning his eye forced around a created blade circle around him. Then released by his Tachi, repelled all forthcoming shurikens with ease, and with them, Karagane's pentacados lurking in the darkness faded to nothing. With that, there you are, crouched Karagane. I was thoroughly overwhelmed by Reen's sudden counterattack, throwing completely off balance. There's nothing to do to repel what would come next. So to settle this. Reen sort of surged downward, but point I was mind a final single strike. Just the two felt the battle was coming to an end. She was from duality. Coming with a voice as beautiful as a bell was a slash tearing through the sky. Its color so black it threatened to eclipse the moon. It fully stopped Reen's weapon from reaching its target, but that wasn't all. What? The high pitched accent? Reen's blow touch was sundered cleanly in two. Princess? Kira's taken back by his new arrival. What's happening for our scouts? Can invite me to join the fun instead of keeping all to yourself. The words as she chided Kiragane indicated dissatisfaction, but just the music of her tone betrayed her excitement. We made to see who this mysterious figure was. I have no idea who this bitch is. The sight of her alone took his breath away. I don't know what I just hit. She was young, wearing a fortified suit that looked to be a marriage of classical and modern Eastern styles, with long silver hair that almost appeared to glow in the pale moonlight. Hair directly close to Reen's, perhaps a little younger, with well-defined features that still had traces of adolescence, pairing strikingly in contrast to the empty void behind her eyes. There's the air of a young noblewoman who had been sheltered from impurities all her life, the stench of a baleful werewolf who had bathed in the blood of countless lives. How she was both and neither at once, Reen could not understand. It was this very quality that made her all the more captivating and dangerous. The woman's left hand was a large, black and gray blade that threatened to freeze him for daring a glance at all. But that was what have Reen's touchy moments ago. What did... Never words as he clutched the useless handle tightly in his hand. The fair woman's only smile as she looked down upon it. Your weapon was very fine. It was never any match for my friend, I'm afraid. She flung the black blade in her hands around gently before holding it towards the night sky, to seemingly display it with pride. It was easy she would boast about possessing such a weapon. He had seen many a blade of historical significance, but instinct told him that hers was better than any of those. The blunt side featured an intricate design of deep gray that, while he could not discern its meaning there and then, he was nothing less than a work of art. There was an aura about it, when cold as ice, it seemed to reject its worldly surroundings, making it capable of cutting through anything it so desired. It came accompanied with a beautiful hilt of deep red that contrasted his body without feeling out of place. The juxtaposition was, in a sense, much reflective of its wielder, with their two opposing natures being distinctive, yet also as one. Reen thought as he observed, the blade was clearly something special, but alone did not explain the strike behind her attack. He never heard the technique she used, but certainly connected to 8 leaves in some way. The skill she showed in executing it made her equal to a divine blade. So fixated as his thoughts rushed to his mind, that was only brought out by her sudden laughter. I didn't think I'd ever meet you here. Wonderful masters behind guiding us to the same place. It's just a happy coincidence. Wait. Now she's spoken familiar with Reen gave him a theory. Tiki Juice was really something. Consider me intrigued. It's really even more interesting than our senior practitioners. So I was right. Are you? Before I could hear what you already knew, she turned away. She's allowed to finish the question. He isn't here, so why don't you run back to your family? Go and make the most of your vacation. Don't just go to blade slip, or we'll need it again one day. She spoke with a certain satisfaction as she pointed down to the other half of his broken blade, and she lived high, seemingly to spring on the other side of the moon. He could only stare, dumbfounded, as she vanished. He couldn't even speak. Kiragane left with her. Oof. Yakuraga, the Black God won Blade School, and our senior practitioners. He was able to fulfill his objective, and not just that, he was left with countless new questions about the people who counted and the mountain itself. He thought there was meaning behind being guided to this wicked place, but how important it was, or what it entailed, he did not know. And yet, first responsible for starting that won't be me. Looking at his broken Tachi, he was struck anew with how massive the world truly was. He realized, when his master was currently elsewhere, Rose visit to Long Lake was something more than enjoy a wonderful, ardent vacation with his family. His being here was a peculiar coincidence. For now, at least. I could back clearly reforge my Tachi and myself. Something stirred in this region, all across Calvard. There's nothing he could do about that, as he was. He could just focus on training, better himself, so he could one day play a part against the next star that loomed over the distant horizon. It's so funny now knowing that, like, it's beyond the horizons, and they keep making, like, they keep poking at that. I just think it's funny. You kind of see if you go back and listen to them, or if you go to, like, the earlier the episode, you kind of see it, like, they'll do it, like, once per game. They'll, like, you'll, like, learn why it's called that, because it will say something. New resolve welling his soul, he made his way to the now still mountain trail, back to where his family waited. Okay, so Rain just came across some bad bitch. Alright. Are these like threads of fate? Was that there? I don't remember that being there a minute ago. An unconventional student. April year 1208 of Setting Calendar. Aramis Academy is a famous educational institution in the Calvardian capital of Edith. The name derives from an artist central to Calvard's democratic revolution 100 years ago. It's also reflected in its goal of nurturing new talent and hoping to forge a brighter future for a new republic. The Academy placed great value in traditional education, of course, but also encouraged the perspectives of new cultures and values, attracting many an independent mind from across the area. It was a story place of learning that reflected the republic's view as a whole. This story, for its part, begins not long after the Springtime Festival held yearly to welcome the new student body. Just another morning at the Academy, countless students shuffling through its grounds. One of them in particular happened to draw an unusual amount of attention. They had long, soft violet hair crowned with a black ribbon. Her had been cut very respectably as she matured into a young woman of 17 years, and her face still had traces of girlhood days bygone. Who she was, she never failed to turn inquisitive heads as she strolled along. Oh, it's Ren! Her name is Ren Bright. Aww! She's a second-year student from Janus County Liberal, now studying at Aramis as part of an exchange. So Ren gets to be part of this whole story too. If I don't get that dinner with Harold, I'm gonna freak. I'm still waiting for it. She was the second year student for Janus County and Liberal, now studying at Aramis as part of an exchange program. She only just arrived in the spring. Ren's goal in attending was not to further her education. She'd been considered highly gifted. Also, I would say Ren's hair is like somewhere between a pink purple. I guess I don't think it's lavender. I think it's like closer to a pinker color, but regardless. She was highly gifted since she was a child, having already earned several doctorates in years past, and there's little more than the new academy could reasonably teach her. Her goal, in reality, was to use as a front to operate freely in Calvard. Tried to find one better than being a student. Shorty found the role relatively foolproof during her time at Janus. There was limits to how much a student could get away with. Society as a whole was soft on school children. So we freely also required drawing as low as potential as possible. She considered herself modestly, as any elegant young lady who wished to remain unseen should, during her time at Aramis. There's just one very big problem with this plan. Good morning, Miss Bright. She's just gorgeous. Look, I see her. She's beautiful. So she's just as smart, too. She just walked down the hall to be showered with greetings and whispers of envy and admiration. Looks alone already enough to make her the talk of school. For one of the teachers let slip that she received a perfect score on an entrance exam, certainly not a single person who didn't know her name. Most students cared not how much she wanted to avoid drawing attention, just getting whether she liked it or not. Naturally, not everyone was pleased with this booming popularity the new transfer student had attained in less than a month. While most were busy fawning over Ren's arrival that morning, another group watched the charade unfold from the shelves, echoing audible tuts of displeasure. Ren had to be enrolled in any clubs, so as soon as the day's lesson had come to an end, she packed her belongings and stood to leave. Word, if I may, Miss Bright. So fellow classmates, surrounded by a small faction of students clearly loyal to their King Bee. Buddy, you don't even know the shit that Ren's been through, like, but try it. Certainly. As you told her this is not going to be a conversation she wanted to have, she made an effort to pretend otherwise. She would not be provoked into behaving as anything but a mature, modest young lady. I've been wanting to get to know better for some time now, you see. So maybe you might join me for dinner this evening. The boy, Ronald Griffith, presented a gentlemanly smile. It was very much used being asked out like this. Never once did she accept. She always made some excuse to turn them down. Today would be no different. I'm ever so sorry. I'm afraid I have something urgent to take care of after school today. Some other time, perhaps. It's usually enough to get them to give up. Ronald is a persistent one. But that won't do. Something very important to discuss with you, and I've already booked this table at a very fine restaurant, so you could discuss in detail. Is there really no way your business can wait? Something honest about his smile. I couldn't help but be curious what he was thinking. I'm afraid I can't. So sorry after you've gone anywhere for ahead of that time. Still, it's very little time now, so I'd be happy to talk here if that's alright. So not tonight then. A pity. Ronald's tone read one less of genuine sadness and more irritation things are not going according to plan. Well aware that he let slip his true feelings on the matter, he quickly composed himself and smiled. As whenever I suppose this does concern the room, perhaps for the better said here. To this, Brayden glanced around the room, noticing only she, Ronald, and his lackeys were all who remained. Most were likely on their way home or in their respective clubs. Some have ordinarily been in the classroom at this hour. She was certain none wanted anything to do with Ronald and his group. She stepped forward and began to seek. Well, I'm very surprised that you've come all the way from distant liberal to be here. So usually students transfer from afar for family reasons. In your case, you came out just to learn these hallowed halls. I have a deeply admire your spirit and thirst for knowledge. Pure theatrics, this one. At the same time, worry about you, brilliant you may be, living alone in Firefly must be a terribly lonely and challenging affair. We'll need someone to depend on our lives, especially so in your situation. Tell me saying so, Miss Bright. Maybe you're in need of someone to look after you, to protect you. I don't think you know what you're talking to. At last he shut up, giving Ren a chance to respond. She scrutinized him closely. In short, you'd like me to join your circle of friends, correct? Around a smarmy smile broadened. What kind of fucking sentence? His father was a senator in the Republic's parliament. Saw it coming. Meaning he held a significant amount of political power. His son used his full advantage ever since he joined the academy, not only used his father's name to form a faction of sorts among the students, forcibly building his reputation until he was the leading candidate for student council president in an election stage in half a month's time. His goal, Ren assumed, was to bring the hottest talk of the academy to his faction to further secure his chances of victory. I think you'll find that joining us will help you feel much more secure at home here. Because you don't appreciate just how much difference having someone like me backing you would make on the life of an exchange student. True, she mused inwardly. Being a group of high school social would make it easier for her to gather information. She'll have her fellows' connections to build of her own that would pay itself in the dividends in the days to come. How was I knowing the actual circumstances brought her to Aramis? Perhaps it was, in fact, very beneficial to her. She turned a smile and modest when she answered. You kind of think so much of me, but I'm afraid I'll have to decline. Clear, unambiguous rejection. Ronald's lips were still curled in a smile, but he could not hide the twitch in his brow, nor could his lackeys hide their shock. They had, by all accounts, expected her answer the opposite. She won't consider Miss Bright? Surely someone as brilliant as yourself can see accepting my offer being your best interest. For if you don't now, you may, well, come to regret it. Those words are hair slower and deliberate to intimidate her, and of course, was never going to fall for it. I'll admit, it's a tempting proposal, tempting enough to inspire one to consider helping a certain someone with the student council election. If only that someone weren't you. What'd you just say? Sudden taunt caught him completely off guard, resulting in a irritation escaping him. Ren, for her part, was unruffled by the change. I imagine you know exactly why, but I will be sure. I've been very aware that the threatening glares I was attracting all my school every morning have been coming from all of you. I constant my life ever since before the festival. Well, fellow student, the science which she said to be true, she continued. Now, you have a right to regard me with caution. I'm well aware how much I stand out despite my best efforts. Taking original threats on your own wing, it's a strategically sound move too. However, your target was so easily able to see through your scheme shows everyone here just how inept you really are. However, I think to the system so incompetent and small-minded. The shrugging aside in a somewhat dramatic fashion, Ren stood before Ronald, his shoulders trembling from rage. Good day to you all? Ren gave a courteous nod of acknowledgement, preparing to leave the room, paying no mind to the wide-eyed, open, slack jaws she left behind. Get him, Ren. The best part too is like, there's no way they're gonna be able to do shit to her. So I end up getting pretty beat up from one of their mom's crazy job shit through them. Ridiculous to get out of ouch. Your mom's always so funny. Then in the dormitory, Ren and Tita were engrossed in deep conversations through their laptops. Aww. Look at them getting older. Look at Tita growing up. But so is the same old you. So I get left with how often you tell me she hasn't nearly facing death. You son of Rhett. That's only the concise except you're trying a little romance that looks like a couple of bright-eyed lovebirds we know. But oh, we had to get us from next week, so we're not a complete rut. Well, isn't that something? There's a dollar await you, my dear friend. Ren! Tita graduated the ranch came as an air bunny, just as Ren left for Calvard, leaving them no time to spend another in person. It wasn't ideal, of course, but from a hint of sadness came the habit of talking like this once a week so they could stay in each other's lives. Discuss anything, from their new lives and environments to their fruits of their research, occasionally stumbling into a serious topical matter or two along the way. It's just so cute, because if you think all the way back to, like, Sky, like, they were, like, young. Like, what, like, fucking 12? Like, they were so young, and now they're, like, little adults. Watching all the babies grow up. This is a conversation between the friend coming as I mentioned notable at this point. I know, I can't believe it's really happening. Both in front of their screens. This is a moment concerning the cover and industrial giant rent company become a key source of concern for them as late. Hey, that bitch looks a lot like the Grandmaster. Begins to cross forward. return to normalcy after the Supreme Leaders take over the previous year. First, Erica Russell approached the Burn Company to propose that they join the West Sumerian Tech Union that she'd been hard at work forming. To no one's surprise, they refused. Before Erica and the rest of the engineers involved keeping Fish getting ready to go and change her mind, something happened to make the Union the least of anyone's priorities. The men in development of a new generation of ordnance, and the generation's long partner in the subset of technology, the Epstein Foundation, would not be a collaborator. The latter being key supporters of Mira's orbit development and orbital technology in general since their very inception. Federal Ordnance were no exception to this. The Foundation had known their way around them since the very first model, drafting the incredible concept that had been used as a base ever since. Even the Rifragan before the Battle of Jormungand had not thought to develop their Arcus models on their own, instead of favoring develop them in partnership with the Story Institute. The answer was, quite simply, unprecedented, sent shockwaves through the industry. The Epstein Foundation was also less than pleased about being cast aside in this manner. While there were certainly legal concerns regarding who owned the patent to this technology, their greater concern was that their stable position in the industry as a whole was now becoming unstable. They initially responded by attempting to resolve this through peaceful means. When those attempts proved fruitless, it was reported they were preparing for what they could be an ugly international legal dispute. Super has the upper hand if they ever makes it to court. Like their previous ram to ordnance, the 6th generation is designed to set a whole new standard. All of its main features packed with new tech, with some new features still being kept under wraps. Bizarre, could they be trying to develop that's important enough to ruin their relationship with the Foundation? Though I've heard about the government telling the Burn Company to focus more on weapons development, I have too. I don't know who's talking, so it's going back to normal voice. It sounds like they're planning to significantly revamp the military's weaponry. Officials started they're planning on slimming the military down, but they're repairing that with the latest in weapons development, and they're still just as powerful, maybe more so. As part of the war's ceasefire agreement, Airborne is required to downsize their military, bringing it more in line with that of Calvert's. Yet, if the Republic were to expand the capabilities of its military, this recently forced equilibrium in the superpowers would be quickly broken. Very true. There are a lot of questions and answers to. It'd be worth visiting the Burn Company headquarters in Basel at some point. You haven't know anything more about where Professor Hamilton is at the moment, right? I knew her concretely. It's like she's continuing research eastward, but I haven't heard anything more specific than that. I don't grab I haven't had any luck in contacting her either. South side of the area isn't very well connected, but still unfortunate. She's a lot more personable than Professor Schmidt, so having her on our side would help a lot. So you don't laugh. Yeah, there's a lot of worrying stories going on at new PMCs and stuff like that. Private military contractors. It makes me wonder if that's at least usually what that means. It makes me wonder if none of this would even be happening if she was still acting as an advisor for the Burn Company. The deeper the conversation went, the more Tita could feel her spirits sinking. The climate west in Zemira was unusually stable at the moment. With its nation's basking in prosperity, she could not shake the feeling that the piece was built of rotting wood and then it would all come crashing down with but the slightest provocation. This was becoming especially true in the tech world, as it had undergone rapid growth in recent years compared to other fields. So rapid, in fact, that no base could possibly sustain its sudden weight without cracks beginning to form. That's not as much in the worst case scenario, Tita. Peace not resting on a knife's edge, but there's still plenty we can do to preserve it. That's why I'm here right now. That's why you're working so hard too. Finding a million problems we're on, but pessimism isn't going to make them go away, right? First puts you at the right amount of coverage needed in the precise moment. Yeah, I guess you're right. Thanks, friend. They'd sitting on, losing track of time as they talked well in the night. They knew it, the clock had struck 12. Well, it's getting late, so we'll probably get going. Talk to you soon, okay? Alright, good night, Tita. Oh! She was remember something. The exclamation stopped Ren just as she was about to end the call. Son Joshua told me to ask if you're doing okay in school. I was too worried too much. You think I wasn't talking to them too? She could not remember her interaction with Ronald's class. Ron quickly drove the thought from her mind. It wasn't worth dredging up. Tell them they can rest easy. Everything is fine. Good, they won't let them know if you were being bullied so they can fly over and help. Here, don't say, honestly, do you think I can't keep myself safe from a few schoolyard bullies? Actually, they say more worry about what you do to them than what they do to you. Real. Her friend silenced, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. I'm worried about you too, obviously, but they're probably right. How awful of you. If that were to happen, I wouldn't do half of what you're imagining. Not anymore, anyway. See, it's saying that kind of thing is people worry. I'm a lady now. The magnanimity to forgive the traditions of others. I'm also trying to do what I can to avoid staying out too much at school. You could try, but I think that's always been a lost cause. Anyway, now I'm really gonna go to bed before I remember anything else. Ted's in for me if you run into him. I'm gonna go see him when everything comes down here, so we'll do. Been meaning to go and see someone else I've been indebted to in the past too. But by the time the two of them had finished talking into the call, one day had given way to the next. The morning dawned yet another day of school. However, just as she left the classroom in the main building at the start of lunch and went to descend the staircase, she felt someone suddenly draw out from behind her. Flexibly, she dodged out of the way. People soon entered her field of vision. She had lost her balance, her expression mixed of fear and surprise. She crouched at the spot Ren had been moments before. but her momentum showed no sign of fading. Someone didn't stop her. She was going to start tumbling downstairs. Nurse Quick was grabbed her and pulled her close. She supported the girl's weight with one arm with all the grace of someone taking part in a ballroom dance, saving her from falling. Some incidents happened to witness the event unfold and could not help but elicit gasps of admiration. Noticing the girl's eyes still unfocused, Ren gently addressed her. Are you alright? You're unhurt, are you? Realizing she was in, the girl, who was facing quite red, quickly straightened her posture in a fluster. Yes, I'm okay. I'm Fred's next liver, aren't you? Thank you so much for helping me. You're very welcome. What have to cause you from losing composure like that right next to a staircase? Do you really have some urgent business to take care of? The girl first frowned in response, then paused to think, then answered. I think I can think of it. It's weird, but even though it's probably my imagination, it felt like someone had pushed me from behind. I've never seen no one here would do that, so I must have just bumped into someone by accident. She looked at us again before disappearing in the distance. She had deemed her imagination ever lingered in Ren's mind. I kinda thought like that guy was gonna push her or do something. Something was missed, but they would fall down the stairs. I'm badly hurt. Was it just coincidence, or was it deliberate action by someone who wants to hurt me? It was the latter. She had to support the stair, but what they came up from a sensation? Feeling malicious stares for focusing on her from the shadows. It took surprisingly little time for her suspicions to gain evidence. After finishing gym class the next day, ran away from the classroom and began preparing for the next lesson. As she did, she immediately noticed something was amiss. Her textbook glued showed an excessive amount of adhesive. She tried to open them, it was a lost cause to get to even a single page. It was an obvious attempt to harass her. Considering that were equally obvious. That from Ron was sitting, Ronald Griffith and his lackeys, whom she so memorably turned away 2 days prior, were snickering to themselves. Their eyes mockingly focused on Ron all the while. I'm interested in hiding what they're like anymore. So at this point they want me to know who did to intimidate me. This woman also confirmed in her mind that they were responsible for trying to push her down the stairs the day before. Who said they were? Because she refused to join their group, her existence was, in their eyes, nothing more than a hindrance to Ronald's campaign for student council president. So now she just becomes student council president and beats their ass. That's what Ren's smart enough to beat him. So nothing to either break her spirit and force her to join or shame her into lowering popularity among the student body. It didn't matter that Ren had no interest in taking part in the election. After further check the state of techniques, Ren's expression grew difficult to read. They can't make the music again, but not in the little time I left before class. I was soon shined to signal the start of her lesson. The letter checks out on the top of her desk, being never open throughout. She was, of course, less than pleased about a perceived slight against them, began to answer questions as an attempt to chide her poor behavior. Sorry, please read the next paragraph aloud for us. His friends let us tears of pleased giggles at this, their minds delighting at the thought of a flustered Ren being told off and humiliated in front of the entire class. Contrast their reality played out very differently from their fantasies. She read exactly as she was told. Her second selected paragraph she'd been asked to read word for word. All but our textbooks remained closed. Did you memorize the entire book? Hunter could not hide their surprise. But of course, as a student at MS Academy, I would never dare to compromise from training for my lessons. And with such a grace as she, of course, drew more sighs and coos of adoration from both her instructor and peers alike. It was only Ronald and his posse who groaned with sullen expressions. Get fucked. The next incident came on Ren's way to school the next morning. She entered the school gates with a horde of other students and was just about to step in the building when she noticed a foul smell coming from above her. However, noticing a portion of fencing surrounding the building's rooftop was falling directly above her. So now we're just gonna kill her? Because you don't like her? Goddamn. The students know at the same time, letting out screams of horror and worries they could do nothing about. I would easily if I wanted to, but I think it was too urgent life. She sees it in harm. The other students around her would likely not. So she was willing to take. Casting out in her back, she cried out, "Airstrike!" Siri went forward in response to air condition, flying upward at high speeds. She carefully controlled its power so that instead of sending the fence flying, it simply canceled out its momentum instead, allowing her to hop and catch it with ease. It's no accident, the smell makes it obvious. She smell of liquid extracted from a certain plant monster. What's probably was to imitate the natural corrosion of metal, resulting in the application of certain solvents. So the fence following a deliberate action, the perpetrator had been trying to disguise an accident. With Ren having been the target of several malicious acts already, the culprit was clear. Again, she could be present of those familiar hate stares pouring at her from the shadows. Again, as well, we're not the only ones with eyes on her. Whoa, it's awesome! See that? Something she can't do? Ren's quiet mediation was interrupted by a multitude of cheers and applaud from all around her. So she was the performer just about to leave the stage. She gave an elegant bow in response. It's not the last time she endured harassment from Ronald's group. Each and every time they thought they best her, she honored herself with exemplary skill, their efforts only serving to make her more popular. So the affairs continued for several more days before seemingly out of patience Ronald summoned Ren behind the school building after lessons were over for the day. He stood oppressively before his lackeys behind him, the composure he tentative pain before now replaced by plain vile anger. Buddy, you do not understand who you are fucking with. Look at you straight, Ren, right? You're an eyesore. That generally air he impersonated before was gone. Really? That's not a very polite thing to say to a classmate. Try to act cute and innocent, but to a daytime mirror in a building reposition of this academy, who's always the center of attention instead. It's you. It's always you. It's like you're deliberately trying to sabotage my chance of success. It's the last thing I can afford right now. The more livid Ron became, the more unruffled Ren was in turn. You're only sabotaging yourself by setting me up to succeed over and again. You are aware of that, aren't you? Had she not been forced to defend herself against him over and over again, she would not have received nearly as much attention. This is true. This thing funny caused Ronald to return an audible tut of frustration. Because I had evidence. The point is, this has gone long enough, so I have to ask you to step off the stage for a while. What do you mean? I was going to present someone's initial cool when they first started talking as he answered. I'm saying very simple. She was come to school until election's over. And if I refuse? As he raised a hand in response, it's like he stepped forward to surround her. Boys are usually well built for their age, short of their hulking forms and hopes of intimidating her. Refusing is not an option. Refusing is not an option, I'm afraid. If you're going to oblige me willingly, she'll have to make it so you can't come to school for a while. Saki's cracked the knuckles dramatically to clarify this leader as a tent. Well, that's no good. I think we both know it constitutes a grave violation of the school rules. Her reflection caused him to mistake her commentary as showing a hint of fear for the feeling desire to dominate the situation. I was watching a place like this. You know someone to have to see? Father's a politician. He can make it go away. They don't willingly choose to ignore it. They saw in deference to my position. That is, everyone in this county seems to know their place, you see. Everyone except you. It's not so unpleasant that sigh escaped Ren. Oh, I think the other one who doesn't know your place. Something about that after Tia said. He taught a good, hard lesson. Ronald continued on, oblivious to what was running through his apparent victim's mind. Now do as I say. Psyche should close her writing to Caesar. Keep them out. The best one is to hurt them. Just don't have to get them around the track. I don't think it's tell Josh would object to that either. Just she was about to act. So this at once. Go checking in the direction of the building. She was, of course, not shooting at Ren. Who are you? Ren was visibly irritated. The girl appeared to be visibly nervous. She continued to stand her ground. Thanks. You're listening, but I can't find out what was happening here. Can't go through this. What you're doing is wrong. The girl stepped forward until she was directly in front of Ren to protect her from the school year bullies. That's so sweet of you. I don't know who you are, but you don't want to worry about her. She will protect both of you and herself, but... She just had a real sleek, dazzling blonde hair that shimmered much like the sunshine above. Ren was a first-year student who lived in the dormitory next to her own. They were close to one another. At most, they only exchanged polite greetings with one another as they passed each other in the hall. She seemed like a quiet, polite young woman with a good upbringing. However, not the type whose eyes would glow with resolve as she put her well-being on the line for someone else's. I was surprised at this, as was Ronald. He was less than impressed. He never fathomed that a student would dare to resist him. One thing he did sense was that resistance a little more than a brave front. The excitement at the thought of stripping that front bare, he could sadistic smile and addressed her. Listen now. What do you mean that I have you to show me the error of my ways? Ren can wait. You're a first year, I assume? I need to give you a lesson just how right and wrong works in our society. I think it was like he should just dared a new target over Ren. She had trouble with danger closing on her, but still, she did not move. Don't you dare! It was Ren who spoke up. Give her what you want, so don't you dare touch her. But... You sure about that? She was fine enough shots, but Ron was more than happy to have his win in any form. So, Squaw, that's what you want, right? Then you... Since this thing has been rather tiring for me, so maybe I do need some rest. So it's a gentle attempt to assuage kind girl's concerns. Ronald, meanwhile, made no attempt to hide the joy he felt at victory, laughing heartily with all the glee of a spoiled child. Good, now everyone knows their place here. Here's not either of you now that we got what we want. She was lucky that I decided to let you go. Oh, I really wanted to beat his ass. Ronald turned away and made her to leave, his lackeys following suit. Good day to you then. Next day, this school will be all mine. And he was gone. So the girls left behind the school building. The other two looked up with her senior, concern welling in expression. I really am right. You're very kind to worry. Ren smiles one of genuine kindness. But then, Ren did indeed stop coming to school, citing illness as a special reason behind her absence. Since then, the county's out trying 7 days later for the long awaited student council election. Mercer County as a whole placed great importance on the autonomy of its students. As such, the student council exercised an unusual amount of power. It also weighed upon them a massive amount of responsibility, such as being the school sole planner of County's festivals, a symbol of celebration for spring in the capital. This, however, was also positioned being a major status symbol even long after graduation. All this is why a large number of students put their names forward to become the student council president every year. This year, the majority of the most promising candidates dropped out under mysterious circumstances, leaving only Ronald and others who associated with him on the ballot. Could exactly boast about winning by default. Ronald supporter sat in the rest area, chuckling when it says at the whole affair. President was the only one ballot, but none of the others had done anything to certify campaigning, so meaning his election was positively assured. Eventually, the time came for him to give a speech. It's a compelling one. He played the part of respectful and gentle as he delivered it, speaking the same silver tongue he inherited well from his father. For some moments where he failed to hide his arrogance, but as no one else had prepared a speech to give, it's not the blow to his campaign it otherwise would have been. Then he turned to the screen, he spoke up at the back of the auditorium. This is a rather notable feature to have in a school building, to have anywhere. It was installed several years prior for use in lectures and display recreational films. Other nations had to indulge in such luxuries, showing just how far ahead Calvert was in this technology. Until then, students had used it to display photographs during these speeches. Brown had taken a step further. He wanted to show a professional video, not a simple makeshift, self-produced one that might ordinarily be presented by an amateur, but rather professional work he paid a considerable amount of mira for. Its quality was genuinely impressive. His victory is written in stone, but this, he knew, would cement it that much more. Christmas was to serve as a perfect beginning to his ascent to the top of social hierarchy. He started the video. His video was rousing, fitting. Followed was Ronald appearing on screen. Shading off for supporting me to make it worth your while. What? The video was not the one it intended. Rather than the inspiration show what he could bring to the student body, it was recording him buying us one of his opponents just days before. I'm dead. This suspicious confusion spread through the auditorium. The next clip played. It's good for you, which other candidacy right now. Don't think of the president as a hospital bed. It was an equally unexpected scene of Ronald intimidating another candidate into withdrawing from the race. To continue, Ronald what was going on. Someone out there had placed his carefully prepared video with another. So Ren spent all of her time where she went away and she did that instead. The initially hesitant whispers exploded into loud enough murmurs that he had to raise his voice in order to attempt to quell the situation. This is all forgery, so it's time to frame me. Just a moment, putting Mr. Garage now, girl's voice was down her entrance. I'm afraid it's all entirely genuine. Voice rang out with wonderful clarity, charming all who heard it. She ran her hand through her violet hair and fluttered back as she walked down. She stopped and walked slowly towards the stage. For having political threats, blackmailing, threatening, even executing violence against others, and many other cases of bullying besides. You're guilty on every single account, Ronald Griffith. If anyone could fully understand what was happening, someone was on the stage and staring Ronald down. Eyes were fixed on his elegant figure. Indeed, without any further she had the air of a protagonist from some epic tale, making her long-awaited appearance. Turn her red bright, since sitting in my way at every turn, got through a sheer of sheer anger. Contrast the recently absent Ren, found a brilliant composure. He's the one getting in the way. The fair running of the important election. He had countless crimes made a mockery of the whole process. And then turned from Ronald to the rest of the student body to continue to list his crimes alongside the still running video. Some listened frowns, others submitting, others complete silence. By the time she was finished, all you read in a single overpowering emotion. Anger. His Joy says that a female student, pretty must be said. If you do not attend this PG Academy, which must be the president of the student council. Similar censure from the elections followed in rapid succession. Yeah, she's right. It's a ruler academy. Not too far. His accusation was the only reason for the anger. Students ever missed long loathed Ronald's oppressive behavior. They only hadn't spoken out before because they were afraid of his father's power. When they realized he could be stopped, their anger had reached an explosive boiling point. Ronald's life was at the center of a torrent of abuse. Boo. He looked at his lackeys for support, and even they refused to meet his gaze. Then dawned on just how fragile he thought he built was. Rage gave way to an instant deep despair, and casting glares of pure hatred towards Ren, Ronald hurriedly sprinted out of the auditorium. When he was completely out of sight, did an air erupt with cheers of joy. In the end, just soon after the election took long enough by the time she left the gates, it was already evening. Even with how late it was, instead of walking her usual route home, she took the path to enter an entirely unoccupied park. This is work. No one's going to interrupt us, so how about you come out? Afterwards, Ronald emerged before her for the first time since he ran out early day, with 10 or so companions in tow. Some were his usual lackeys, but instead vicious figures with dark expressions and gaudy clothing. They're clearly not students of the academy. More than likely, they belong to some local gang. You figure you're outside school now, do you? Hey, you're dressed up, so you must be off to a party or something. Come on with that smug face for good, Ren Bright. As your father's guaranteed, you're gonna ruin everything. What am I supposed to say to my father now? That's your problem, not mine. Are you so small a man you can't own the consequences of your own mistakes? It's like match between his outbursts and the manner in which she snapped back, causing his temper to grow twice as vile. That's it! I don't care what it takes. You're gonna pay for thinking you could cross me and get away with it. No matter, no matter consequences are going too far. My father will see to that. Not starting emotion upon Ronald's signal. Father made them doubt their eyes. Yeah. I can understand what just unfolded before him. His eyes relayed the information well enough, but his mind rejected it completely. So he'd have to go to his new lackey's tent, and he produced a monstrously sized black and gold scythe from thin air. This in itself was beyond comprehension, but wasn't the last thing to be so. Get fucked. Seems like a cat toying with a powerless cornered mouse, except in the shocking case was the cat and the men were the mice. He surrendered at first, and all it took was a single swing of a conjured weapon to cause most of them to collapse to the ground. Less than seconds, their comrades had crumpled with their bodies. The mice made to scurry as fast as they could. The cat gleefully gave chase. There were moments where she let a few think they had gotten away, only for them to close the gap between them. So after she was bored that she would knock them unconscious like the rest, then she would seek delight in her next hunt. Like heavy sacks of potatoes, the men fell one by one, by one, by one, by one, until only Ren and Ronald left. This can't be happening! Now I'm so struggling to come to terms with just witness as Ren stretched her limbs like a bored child still gearing up to play. Ventures. Every last one of them. I'd like at least have a little fun. Well, don't you worry. Didn't actually slaughter them. She gazed in the spectacle of her own creation to Ronald. Would you be open to giving me a little more entertainment, perhaps, Ronald? Ronald twitched in fear at the mention of his name. In the moment, she was now nothing more than a beast in human skin. Stay away from me! If I was in Parliament, you know, turning him in, you'll regret it! She felt the sensation of pure pity before tossing an Appear to Me magazine at his feet. It's one of today's tabloids. You might find its contents relevant. What? First he was baffled by the shift, but the second he peeked the cover, his face went pale. Represented Griffith's suspect of bribery and connections to organized crime, read the headline in giant punchy lettering. There's a whole special feature on your dearest daddy, complete with evidence. Mention the CID is going to be conducting an investigation well. So this may be the last day you can say he's in Parliament. My condolences. No! So visceral was his shock at the news that the simple world was all he could muster. Even then, Ren wasn't finished. Yeah, buddy, you really fucked with the wrong bitch. So nice been removed from the equation. Ask again. Would you be open to giving me a little bit more entertainment? She edged closer and closer, scythe in hand, sadistic smile lacing her lips. Ronald tried to retreat in fear before tripping a rock and falling hopelessly on his backside. All he could do was watch her as though she were the Grim Reaper, tears and snot streaming down his face. It's all in play with me. Didn't understand why they used to call me the Angel of Slaughter. She raised her side above her head and ready to swing it downward before she realized what she said. Oops, Rowan wouldn't play with dolls, though, would she? Here I thought I could better control my childish glee. She covered her mouth with her free hand, blushing with feminine modesty as she slipped up. This was behavior befitting the proper lady she wanted to reflect. After composing herself, she turned attention back to her prey, unless he was already unconscious. Finished? She slid a calming element walked out to her. I certainly am. As the brown-skinned young man leaning covertly against one of the trees. Sesame witnessed the entire affair unfold. He glanced at the park for a brief moment, before speaking with slight but genuine admiration. Really are something. In what way? In every way. More struck by the hacking blows of the famous Kitty than the common prowess of the infamous Angel of Slaughter. Surely you managed to find dirt on his big-wig dad that easily. As a matter of fact, showing no sign his praise had gone to her head. Also, just aren't as cautious as savvy kids they ought to be. Understandable with how new most are to it. Of course, it isn't nearly as easy as it is when you're dealing with leading corporations, politicians at the top of the food chain. It's like you tried before. Maybe I have. Ren smiles both cryptic and darling. I'm more impressed with you. You cooked a right piece of that scaling while also finding me exactly the proof I needed. Glad Grace introduced us. Just doing my job. His name is Dingo. He was a professional reporter for a tabloid. Great, I've got to talk to Dingo for the rest of the series. He's extremely capable of his job, very well connected, and held a reputation for never shying away from danger. Being introduced to one another by Graceland, he and Ren made a deal with one another just a few days prior. Terms are simple. Dingo would provide Ren with proof of Ronald's misdemeanors, Ren would use her hacking abilities to provide evidence of his father's crimes. Both are now reaping the rewards without their success. Though I might they get some help from Fren. He was none too pleased at being asked to look into scummy politician's equally scummy son, but he pulled through. Oh, you have all kinds of connections, don't you? She said someone other than Dingo was acting on her behalf while she was off school, but she wasn't sure who that someone was. This curious sensation regarding their identity remained as she continued the conversation. No, I'm surprised you didn't meet with any resistance in running that story. Such a big a fan the government was a Griffith. He looked along because he didn't actively oppose the current present party, but from the CID's perspective, the chance to take him down was about as good as he's going to get. That's something like Miss Tato-Meister over there would do. Can't say I like the feeling of being used by her, but oh well. She made a curious observation. I don't just have to like to a small fry like him. You really bother you that much? Ren glanced briefly at Ronald, so collapsed on the ground of the park before shrugging her shoulders dismissively. Not in the least. I didn't intend for this to go as far as it did either. I wanted to teach enough a lesson, he'd leave me alone, but... Then the younger student who tried to save her came to mind. These students were much better student council president than him. She thought a titter that was most refined. So unexpected, the allegation led Ronald's father to resign from Parliament while he resigned from Aramis Academy. The group of students who exerted power over the student body with his backing vanished overnight as a result, bidding peace to return to the grounds for the first time in too long. One thing, however, came out from this that Ren had not expected in the least. I think it was the next month's budget. Student council's new president accepted documents from his blonde-haired first year in charge of general affairs, perusing them straight away. After Ronald dashed on training on the day of the election, most of those in the group who put down their name dropped out in a timely fashion. Voting took place even then, but once all was said and done, nearly 7% of the votes cast were disqualified. Just because they were all in favor of someone who had never put her name on the ballot. Ren Bright. Sarah is known for how little its staff interfere with many liberties it's given as a student, but this time, the staff was clearly concerned that dissatisfaction with Ronald was going to present dire problems in the future. Teachers then chose to directly negotiate with Ren. In the face of such fervent demand, she reluctantly accepted the position of student council president. Her duties posed a challenge to her, but by accepting it, she completely and utterly failed her initial goal of avoiding attention. As the outdoors French chemist's first student council felt when he was elected, and I couldn't believe it when Tita told me. Which was Ash, by the way. Right, it is what it is, I suppose. I just have to make use of this the best I can. Suddenly being in the student council room, the blonde-haired girl and two of her friends struggled with the new workload they were adjusting to. As Ren sat there, ears open to random talk and occasional grumble, thought crossed her mind. She had no end of real-world worries. The problems arising from rapid technological development, the study's next move, the ominous winds of change blustering over Calvard. Despite it all, she wanted to enjoy her simple time here while she could. Let's say we get this work done so we can start with the tea party, The Rose Spring was now a distant memory, even if summer had yet to come. There's nothing particularly spectacular about this time. Just another ordinary, beautiful, bright afternoon. Bright afternoon. See what they did there, guys? Okay, one last one. Okay, no, so that was there. Oh no, there's another strand. So Ren's gonna be a big part of this. Wait, now another one showed up. What the fuck? Okay, forward in hand. Which I swear to God just appeared, unless I'm crazy. September, year 1207 on the 17 calendar. I cannot accept. I was not one to mince words. The hulking bear of a veteran bracer, Zinvathic, connived his mind, puffing out his bottle of the size he stood before me. Is this Keeliko? And again, you got resign something inevitable one of these days. Inside this man, who is as capable as he was kind since my first days in the guild. Truly, I did not wish to be a source of vexation for him, but the wish alone was not enough. I have neither the skill, well, it can't be her because she left, so neither experience nor skill to be worthy of an A rank, so I cannot accept a recommendation. Bracers are assigned ranks based on their strength and achievements, with A ranking the highest, on paper at least. So members of the very face of its beloved organization, and such ranks are a metaphorical badge of honor to be worn with pride. So how had I received multiple recommendations for the most prestigious rank in 6 months? It's for no effort working to hone my craft needs I joined after school, and certainly I wouldn't class myself as though a newcomer. Though a newcomer, but to have my name among the greatest of the guild, absolutely not. Try to turn down my first recommendation. The second one came from the guild's headquarters in Le Mans. See? Got both in spades. I asked making you leave toward no? Since our first told me he had been pressured by headquarters to save me, I folded my arms. Trying to decide whether you're overestimating me or not, which I believe you are, there is a very like not stand out more than I already do. Getting offers me a model to star in films. It's been frequently exhausting forcing me to give up. Now, what do you think we have if I were to extend our motion? We'd neck deep in the same mess all over again. What do you have? Oh, the suit. I've never seen.
All of them.
Yeah. You can just take them out and close the door if you want. Rory's coming. Sorry guys, I have my husband has soup and all my cats are trying to eat it. Oh, she's coming. She's gonna get it. Okay, that makes sense. But sorry, you're a 1-2 punch in the beauty and brains department. Trying to lose the lost cause. Can I find again? Maybe you should consider something natural. Who knows? You might walk away with no word from the film festival. It's not as hearty in contrast to my unamused frown. Which I respect him. He could do with showing a little more decorum. So funny. I understand being in the public eye is inevitable and excited, but I'm a bracer, not an entertainer. Who is this? I want to know who he's talking to. I'm trying to find it out. Can I find my last esteem? Or can I break when you need to put together most? How does it work out like you more often than you think? Yes, what yourself much implied, but I also couldn't deny there was a nugget of truth to what he said. We're getting off topic. Why is headquarters suggesting we've had an bracer? I can't see the logic behind it. You see, try that, and the reparations from Bonium have beefed up our economy this year. So new investments are pouring in from across the continent. Now, I'm no economist. If you go where the money's at, people go, conflict follows. It's just how it is. Stories going from there. I didn't expand upon the rest myself. So now we have disputes between mega corporations and stark increasing Jaeger activity. In addition to the known growth of private military companies, increased tensions between mafias. God, you think it's bad now? It's going to get worse from here. Someone wants to set a security for promoting a rising star. You. See, it's good PR for the guild, and a deterrent to any potential threats that are thinking about stepping out of line. Trust more vaguely aware of their goal in using me than I want to admit. This didn't make hearing the answer any more satisfying. If they have you asking to play my part, then surely I've already asked you to play your part already. Been ready for S rank, haven't you? You know a better turn than having an S ranking cover. I like to hear it. Sin scratched the back of his head awkwardly about my statement. Something out there was someone like Cassius Bright. See the official rank. Even if it was, just like me. Think you guys like me a picture perfect advertisement of the guild? See, the skills achievements and built to be one, yes. Quick response. Alright, point made. I can't force you to take the recognition. I'm not about to be a hypocrite. Just, maybe change your mind, okay? I have no idea what his voice is gonna sound like. Haven't heard Zin's voice, I don't think, ever. Or, like, did we see him, like, once? I don't even know. The conversation and the guild bracers gathered to begin a routine meeting of delegating open requests. So I prefer things. Try to stay like this. Oh, does she run one of the guilds? I want to be something more. As long as I can never remember what that was. Something near my childhood had happened, I'm sure. Just recall realizing how small the world truly was, so I prayed in line because someone I was not. I was in high school when I thought I became that someone. Series were unforgettable. I forget the unexpected reunion that was had there, the precious treasure I had gained. She was getting closer to who I wanted to be. In the end, just wishful thinking. My hand once held was now empty. I was still nobody. I refused to stand still, grew unrelenting and following the new path I chose for myself, ignoring my family's objections. My motivations had changed, however, and possessed that girlhood desired, becoming something more. Becoming someone. She had to keep moving, however endless that movement was. I'm guessing she's going to be a new Daybreak character. Well, we're looking gorgeous today. As a week, a familiar bartender welcomed me to the establishment. It's a tall, affable man who lived by his own rules and never hesitated to lend a helping hand to others. Pretty much of the Crossbow City branch receptionist on the few times I visited for work. Pleasure on today. Sat down on the counter seat, farthest from the door as he approached. Usual, sweetheart? Stop by here after a hard day's work on occasion. Never did? I always ordered coffee and light snack. It's not a coffee and snacks kind of day. Something with alcohol, even beer will do. Not fazed by the vagueness of my order, he walked away and started preparing my drink. It was long before I turned and placed an elegant glass in front of me. This is a little more you than a beer. It's a beautiful cocktail composed of two colors, a clear blue like that of a priceless sapphire and a calming jade. From that you could tell how disquieted my heart was and was trying to soothe it in his own way. I thanked him inwardly before daring to broach my other reason for coming. Anything more about what I asked? Having a skilled bartender who is also a well-known informant. He's extremely well connected to the guild, the press, even the criminal underworld. He's very careful never to overstep his bounds with that last one. Indeed, I found him to be a valuable source when needed. She says yes, but not even Dingo has any promising leads. So I think you got your eyes on the right district, and I had time before they get smoked out. See. When the guild's investigation turned up nothing, I was hoping he'd point me in the right direction, but it seems this is going to be a lot harder than I hoped for. Things are out, just pace yourself, keep a little bit at a time. This is a cocktail, it's a strong one, so don't drink it all at once. I took the glass decollete between my fingers and he stepped away. My mind continued to wade through the case I was following. When a stark increase in illegal drugs on the market, not just any drugs either, but ones of the highly addictive, dangerous variety. Hayue, who effectively ruled over the criminal underworld in Calvard, ordinarily limited the proliferation of the market as part of their rules. Limiting the number of drugs was, of course, far from the ideal elimination of them, but none could deny the syndicate's actions had brought some semblance of order to where chaos often reigned supreme. Yet, the past few years had seen a warring number of criminal groups rebelling against these carefully curated rules. One of these groups was surely behind the change in the market, while this held a presumed connection to two missing people. The guild and police had been tasked with searching for two children below the age of 10, a boy and his younger sister. Since the last one day had not been seen since. And as such, they came from a perfectly ordinary family in good terms with one another, so the likelihood of them running away was slim. There was little suspicion that they'd been abducted to ransom early on, but not a single demand was made following disappearance, so it was quickly ruled out. Despite a healthy amount of manpower that was coming from both sides, neither the guild nor the police had yet to find them. That said, the search so far had not proved entirely fruitless. The last known location was fortunately established, and it was, unfortunately, a popular site for illicit drug trade. The working theory from there became that the siblings witnessed a transaction and were held captive by the criminal parties involved as a result. If that held true, the longer it took our parties to find them, the greater the danger their lives were in. The doctors wouldn't do anything right away. Murder was sure to leave trace evidence behind. It was only a matter of time before they resorted to that or trafficking abroad to be rid of them. Yeah. Each about a second, the odds of the children return unharmed were dropping to zero. At the same time, all this pure speculation on our part based on a single established location. For all we knew, this had nothing to do with the criminal underworld at all. Pencil dangers thrown around made inaction an agonizing task, but there was no evidence to go on, action was impossible. We could forcibly arrest any suspicious people on sight, make them talk should we wish it. That would be a direct violation of the guild's code and its founding principles. First, you could always thought to be an ally of the people first and foremost, so resorting to criminal acts to obtain evidence was out of the question. When strict against our codes and stopped us from being able to resolve so many crimes, and putting the people we swore to protect in danger. It's the ultimate and passé. I found myself pondering this impossible dilemma with a bracelet face, and themselves meant a familiar face came to mind. So shot around with a blue-tinged, unkempt hair. He lost contact with another seen before, showing the city as suddenly as he had left it. Soon, after starting up a peculiar profession that skirted the line of legality to a dangerous degree. The kind of profession that could easily involve himself in the affairs of many and unscrupulous individual, or so I believed. Just what did the idiot think he was doing? Every time I left without warning, walked back in just the same. So much time searching for him. There would be an awkward one based on how he plotted. Prevent him trapped all out waiting, while that searching, to have some questionable enterprise so different from my own, was almost too much to bear. He had so many concerns as a bracer, much more concerning as a friend. One that bothered me most was, why didn't he come to see me? Did he have any idea how worried I was about him? How worried I am about him? Irritation building, I took a large gulp of my cocktail, but the alcohol only flamed the fans of anger burning in my heart. They burned brighter and brighter still, becoming a dazzling white that projected countless transient images of the past. Then, as quickly as it flared, my anger faded in an instant, replacing itself with a very different emotion altogether. Why did you leave me? I was my mouth without me realizing. Make you feel downright pitiful, one sir said. Someone to see me in this state? Still have moved on, I see. Then my unexpected voice called me. I jumped slightly from surprise, I quickly regained my composure. I just have a few choice words I'd like to say. My response feigned calmness as best I could. I would think I had more than a few choice words, really, but following with that would aid my annoyance in a way I would rather not further. Oh, I imagine you have more than a few. Right, of course you would see right there me. The spectral man that sat down next to me as though our running into each other was no coincidence. He was another childhood friend of both myself and the one I was lamenting over. Someone who followed a remarkably different career path from either one of us. Saying much, I'm just going to see him. There was that it for now, surely. How could I with how much time that's passed? Then I mumbled my response meekly. Thought I could hear the man next to me chuckle. I suppose any rush things. Lyric, sure your paths will cross naturally enough in due time. I expect that kind of response. Sounds so romantic. Lest you've forgotten, I don't struggle with expressing what's in my heart the way he does. Since you're on my toast, I'll make your next non-alcoholic. Lest have you forgotten I can handle my liquor just fine, thank you very much. And the rest of our time reminiscing. We spent the rest of our time reminiscing about the past. It's been too long since we were able to just sit and talk like this. Wasn't that he and I become estranged? Both our jobs made trying tasks to meet even at the best of times. By the way, heard word you turned down becoming an A-rank racer again? Of course I would skip the CID's ears. For myself wasn't confidential. But that he already knew something, however, unofficial as it was entirely typical of him. First, he got focused on protecting civilians, while the CDA focused solely on the needs of the president and office. The groups were neither enemies nor allies. They seemed to have very different goals where work was concerned. He doesn't place to accept the offer, however, as we're assuming his job becoming remarkably more serious. Says he's looking to demand a new hero, and much is clear. I do realize like him was trying to say what I'm implying was a hero. If I could inquire further, here's the subject that was likely what brought him to find me in the first place. You mind? Something will be interesting regarding those missing children. My eyes widened from the unexpected change. She continued. Identify the group that made the district the turf, as well as collecting evidence of a crime taking place. You may proceed as you like in cooperation with the police. I didn't believe it. Find silver platter, he just gave me cause to act. Since information against the idea, there's no reason to doubt its veracity. Puts it. I was afraid you were killing my girlhood desires. All I did now was follow life where it was taking me. I found myself a new path that could lead to someone I once wanted to be. This deviation terrified me. I was losing something again. What if I had into more pain? Fear begged me to stay idle. So fragile human being at my core. I knew it well. I didn't wish I was anything but. I was trying to take out the sword and rebel against any whispers of weakness, and I played the part admirably on the surface. If I focused on face cruelty in the future, I wondered if I'd be able to take it. Low-key, this is kind of like what I imagine Duvalie is like. When I shifted to the left, I shifted my center of gravity and unleashed a furious slash against my first foe. Using that momentum to thrust both myself and my blade toward my second. Two low-ranking mobsters fell to the ground. They were members of a mafia I'd been chasing. Right now, I was in the thick of their general operations. Trying to give the golden police an excuse, we needed to make a more direct stance against our targets. This information was vague, however, so we still discerned the precise location around. I, Zin, and several other racers agreed to be best to split our forces and attack several locations unison for this part of our mission. As we just transpired, my location was the lucky winner. There's an intruder. Hey, see your force, she's for the paper. Two more reinforcements arrived, but I was hardly going to give them time to act. I raced forward, swinging my sword twice to pass them, and they fell before they could even raise their weapons. I advanced, mobsters in droves, presumably. Word of my arrival had already spread. She is. She raised her words been going around about. Damn, no movables here too. We chicken shit, it's one woman, we can take care of her. They charged me in a mass, at least 10 of them, more reinforcements on the way from farther inside the building. First I had to do with how many they be, and the number was risky. This isn't something to be wait for the other race to show, as I had to consider. We were putting it forward to the Mafia at the time to wield the children as hostages. My two options, I concluded that whatever reduced chances of happening was worth the cost. We need to push on and settle this now. Besides, I really had nothing to fear from this pitiful group as they were. When they seized some common evidence, they could have used their numerical advantage to implement complex formations and corner me. They did no such things, the amateurs. They dared to believe they had a candle to Heiwei's martial artists. In the face of one of my experts, in the face of one of my experience, their bloated side was more of a hindrance than a help. They wouldn't be able to utilize even half of their potential against me. First, I positioned myself and them appropriately. I can ensure the gun-toting wielders among them were in each other's line of fire while rounding up the close-range fighters to a single spot. The bigger worries, friendly fire. One of those would then spell my victory out as I cut them down. One down, two down. Precious seconds after defeating a foe were most advantageous. As the man had fallen, I was on to another before they had time to adjust to my incoming blade. So a pattern to who was next for design. To the targets with stunning erraticism, though in a complete disarray as more collapsed to the ground. 3 down, 4. Go around them in a wide circle. I would move between them, while remaining ever aware of any surprise assaults on my back, all the way through them until I counted the ones farthest back. These ones I never considered I would be able to reach them, they were spread so carelessly. The ones took up their guns with newly alert panic shown across their faces, but their fate was already sealed. They were palaces as I closed the gap between us. 5, 6, 7. Over half of them down, the remaining mobs were quickly losing their will to counter. Some attacked out of adrenaline-induced desperation. Calic and next moved so poorly that they fell into my long-set trap and accidentally attacked themselves. At this point, the battle was good as final. Please continue to take them down until I was the last one standing. I swung grips and counted my way through the building, so I disabled them with little effort. How the information eventually led me to the leader. He was a middle-aged fellow, pacing restlessly around an unpleasantly gaudy room until I entered. He twitched in fear upon the very sight of me. Why are you? Where are my men? Kissing the floors. Sir commenting concisely that he balked in disbelief. That's impossible. I sweat my balls off to build this group from the ground up. You're saying a girl like you tore it all down just like that? I ignored his crude language and drew closer. As I thrust my sword to the set just between his eyes to let out a squeal. Well, I'm no ordinary girl. I'm a bracer. Don't worry, I didn't kill them. They have only been knocked out or restrained. See them again soon. In prison. I saw a dark and glare in his direction at the tip of my sword running downward to his neck. Now I have some questions for you, and you will answer them. He demanded emphatically, his whole body trembling from fear. Children, 1 are grown and 10 years old. Spare last month. These people abducted them, didn't they? He nodded. I knew it! Where are they? What did you do to them? They're in the side. They're alive! Last, for this our leave. My fundamental objective when coming here would be fulfilled. Next, I need to ask more about this group. It's just been far too weak to charge the district of the city. Did you come across your comic book? I think you found the place. You're gonna be having someone else, aren't you? He was so sure how to respond that he felt completely silent, without alone giving me my answer. Who is it then? Tell me, is it A? I can't. A bunch of fears repressed and resisting as though he genuinely couldn't say. Then just as he opened his trembling limbs to speak, the strange thudding sound from into the room. Surf man, my sword still firmly in hand. Crunching, sputtering, war sounds. These were audible ones first. Didn't know what to make of them, but they made an intrinsic revolution as they dragged on. They may have... please don't do this. They may have come accompanied by faint groans, so if they did, they just as the sounds themselves. I remained guard as I stepped on the hallway, ready to be attacked from an angle at any moment. The sight that greeted defied all imagination. Did they just kill the kids? The monsters I fought through mere minutes ago were nothing more than distorted, mutated piles of flesh and bone. Not just 1 or 2, every single one of them, without exception, had been reduced to bloodied mounds. Some were without heads, others had their organs ripped from their abdomens, and when their skulls caved in, leaking pulverized brain matter, ones with their hearts pulled and squeezed. What the fuck? Each corpse was different, each corpse was unbearable to look at. And all my chest with all due speed was now covered in sticky, slimy red. Who could have done something like this? So I saw with my free hand, now clenched, shook from disgust. When it was ever necessary this far, could anyone have to gain from this? Wait, no! I just made a very careless mistake. I turned and hurried back to the room I was just in. It's too late. As they were floating in the air at the center room, so some known force was holding him by his chest. A monstrous sword pierced through his chest. A single streak of blood dripped from his unspeaking mouth. There was no room to believe he was anything but dead. Like all the others in the hallways, he knew how time to scream before his life was taken. Who are you? I was in the room trying to drown out my instinctive fear with anger. One glance, only the corpse and I were present, but if I shut my eyes, I could see the faint contours and the distorting the space around him. I stood in some form of active camouflage. I thought it was basic courtesy to give your name before asking another chiming against the Bracer Guild. It was a man's voice that projected true arrogance, as though you were above all the others as a matter of course. Instinctively readying myself for battle response, my actions seemed not to phase him in the slightest. He was swinging for a fight. It's like here to take out the trash if they were careless enough to leave a trail for the CID to follow. Was really talking to a fellow human being? How could he speak of such gruesome murders in those terms? Business partners? Nah, he must be in the group above them. Very good. He swung his blade aside to toss the corpse to the side with all respect of a used cigarette. How could you truly work like this? People, have you ears? Something about them taking at first and only trash, symbolizes the garbage piling up in the hallway. They've always been so, even before they stopped breathing. It's clear that communicating with someone of his nature was impossible. A dismissed calm reason for intense, all-consuming anger so great that my entire body couldn't stop trembling. You monster! Before I knew it, sprang into action. It says pouting. Putting every drop of my strength in my blade to launch a swift, unavoidable strike. He fell with one vertical swing of his own. I should have known his strength was well a league above mine. I parried my blow at the most perfect instant, canceling out the force of my attack with so little effort that it barely scratched the surface of what he was capable of. Yet I can't watch nothing to hide the monstrous nature of his cruciform sword either. Its design combined silver and black and unholy fusions of darkness and light, as if chaos itself dwelled within its very blade. It was no common weapon. If I continued to give him my all, my odds of winning against him were extremely slim. At the same time, my instincts were screaming to me that I could not allow him to leave. Charge again. Attacking in front was going to work, now I have to go for the side. I blocked it with just a little effort. I wasn't done yet. I refused to stop moving, slashing a third time with even more speed than the first two. Shot with a flurry of them, each one faster than the last. Finally reached my signal, darted in a new direction, attacking from behind. My very soul in the one overrolling attack, aimed directly at his rear, which I can only just make out through the camouflage distortion. I got him. For a second, I became sure the victor was in the rest. His mortar blade carved through great arcs of the air in a ferocious spinning slash. I was able to instantly defend myself against the blow, but the force of it sent me flying backward. I was fortunate enough not to have sustained a direct hit. My body shook for not being able to fully cancel out its massive weight. Still, I forced my back to my feet and glared at his form. Between us was night and day. It felt as though he could manipulate the very flow of battle, much like a master martial artist who would show the true nature of all things. He paid no mind to my pitiful attempt at bravado, gave a short laugh before speaking. Impressive, you know more fight than the rumors led me to believe. What's your goal? What are you trying to do with all your strength? He couldn't reject or ignore me, so I was taken aback when he paused for a sincere moment of thought before answering. Interesting question. I suppose to instill fear. Fear? Almost out of my ears. Fear is at the heart we know. Domination, and servitude, order, harmony, production, all exist because of fear. So I seek to instill fear in its purest form, much like the retributive tower that appeared in Crossbow half a year ago. Such a pity that it fell. Such pleasure word that made it easy to imagine the expression on his veiled face. As insane as what he was saying sounded to me, I knew he meant every word of it. You really are a monster. Seeing your foolish chance to stop me, and I'll show what I mean in due time. He lowered his blade. It's pretty good for assisting us. My house cleansing efforts. I'll let you and those children go. Keep that far too pristine blade sharp for our next meeting, Bracer. With that, he turned to leave. Wait! She extended my hand. The ground below him emanated a bright glow, and by the time that glow had faded, he was gone. It's like he was the same teleportation spell that certain other criminalizations were known to rely on. His departure also released all the strength that I had left in me, not from relief, but from the exact opposite. I was so overwhelmed with frustration that I let him leave, so afraid of what he might go on and do because I couldn't stop him that I lost the strength to even stand. Of course, this is just who I've always been. I haven't changed one bit since the day you left me. It's the same powerless girl I was back then. Mercury wasn't finished yet. I walked to the next room. The door was greeted by what appeared to be an old church. There across the hall, found who I was searching for. The brother and sister pair were crouched on the floor, the boy trembling on the floor as his sister stood close by. It's okay, I'm here to help you. Kept my tone as gentle and reassuring as I was able. The girl smiled, with her older brother continued to hide his face. Sorry, Tyler, covered the neck and innocent wounds, but as I did, I was sure as I vigorously, as though I was trembling the closer I got, so he would tell me to stay away. The answer from that man in flash 9 appears at the heart of all we know. Poor children were very much in fear's clutches. My heart gradually was enclosing the distance between myself and the boy, trying my best not to provoke him, his body language showed he continued to reject me. Now within arm's length of another, he was shaking more violent, and though he opened his mouth to speak, his voice refused to come out. It's alright. His smile was a comforting smile. After that, he reached behind me and grasped the blade of a knife that was being thrust towards me. I turned swiftly, my fingers letting go, and found the one girl being thought to be none other than the sister. She tipped around my back while I was kneeling, to meet her brother, tried to stab me from behind. She was a bit startled by my halting her attack, but otherwise she stared blankly forward, motion her face nowhere to be seen. This is what I fear. It controls everything we do. It's something terrifying if we made you resort to this. Not that I conditioned my fear to attack anyone who came to the rescue. I paid no mind to the blood from my bare hand slowly dripping the floor. The cut from the knife was nothing compared to everything else in the moment. My first party instead was to reassure the girl that I meant no harm. Humans are capable of more than that fear. We can fight it. With courage, we can fight. Your brother was doing that just now. Being grabbed by fear, but he still fought his hardest through his actions to alert me the danger his sister posed. Even if it took all he had, he wanted to keep me safe, to keep her from getting an irreversible, regrettable act. So I told him that I asked what she was doing. You don't have to be afraid anymore. I'm a bracer. I'll keep you safe. To the girl in my arms. You're a bracer? Your voice is devoid emotion. That's right. I'm here to help you. Here's a magazine for something Blade, I think. That's right. I think it's so embarrassing. Happy if you remembered it. Anyway, as long as here, you know I'm here to keep you out of harm's way. Time to make her run as if to stop anything more from hurting her and surrounding her warmth with my warmth. Really be okay, I promise. As I twitched slightly before long, her eyes full of tears. She didn't sniffle. First a small one, here and there, until they gradually grew more pronounced, eventually turning to uncontrollable sobs. She found being liberated from her fear. As for me, I had stayed my course, too afraid to deviate from my current path. Still, I chose this path with pride in my heart, didn't get the right to turn my back on it now. So I wouldn't let it be an aimless journey from now on either. And so, it's another day in the Edith branch of Calvert's Guild. It sounds like the Mafia was trying to copy what the organization of assassins managed to pull off. Discussing the recent case with Zinn. Something had indeed been inducted because they witnessed an illegal transaction. The Mafia involved then thought to mimic a group of assassins known for raising children with intent on professional killers, which is the one from Swin and Nadia. What are they called? I forgot their fucking names. Attempts, thankfully, Princess also attempts to remain covert and selling drugs. CD found them, whoever they were working for purged them. Hell, way to go. There's no kind of me they wouldn't purge at all. It's not bad, because pride keeps civilians safe, not criminals. I don't say they deserve it for getting involved in organized crime, but it is what it is. To put the frustration you're feeling, the more personal growth, so letting eat you alive. I told that my siblings were going to need psychological counseling for some time, and feel expect to recover and go back to their everyday lives. Maybe that might trigger something inside of me. I realized that something needed to change. I had to take some kind of step forward. The end of me falling to the floor in some dramatic fashion, I should pick myself back up again. With that in mind, set down my alternate recommendations. Times we live in demand a new hero. Things that I think of my childhood friends said to me. I didn't believe I had what it took to be a hero. If I could even just brief one, maybe give the people hope and banish darkness ahead. That was reason enough to keep going. Making somebody enough to fight so long in the relay once I came to light. Well, should we get down to business? Doesn't nervous me. He's classic bug and even broader than usual. Allowing for official paperwork to headquarters, but I'm sure Mommy's speeding up this part of the process how much they wanted this. Look, now's a bracer who reached Aiming. At the same age of the Empire's purple lightning. Nice. What's your Russian, Elaine? A Claire B's blade? Okay. I know Elaine's a major character in Daybreak. I don't know anything about them. I just, you know, these are just things I know. Things I've heard. Okay, yeah, so it is weaving all the fate together. Okay, the hopeful last one list wants to give me a surprise one. But return to the garden. That was the guy. Suspension of casualty recording engine activity confirmed. Force connection to Astral Link severed. The world of casualty, engulfing Erebos and the fated land, has at last been unraveled. Though the bell ringing in the end of days has yet to be silenced. They might be yelling up front. Children's mirror, have earned your moment of peace until the time comes to face the final hour. You, with hope and fear in your hearts, must walk new trail.
Rendering browsing interface.
Well, that is that. So we got some good backstory on some characters. So it looks like we'll do with like a bracer thing. And I hope we see a lot more of Zen then. Haven't seen really Zen at all since like Sky. I really can't recall. But yeah, it looks like that is like the end for Reverie. I don't think I have anything else to do story-wise. Nothing like I went through all of this.
Interface.
You can see all my stratums. I've collected literally everything. So that will be at the end. This one's been so fun. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, I blasted through this like crazy. Like, you guys don't really know because of the way I've set it up. But for me, I have. I did take a minute to get to this like end. But anyways, that'll be the last Reverie video. So when I see you next, we will be into Daybreak. So, thank you guys so much for watching. My schedule's posted in the description below. My socials are linked to my boss. You can follow me on pretty much any platform. Thank you all for watching yet again. I do this next video over my Twitch channel. Okay, bye.